Welcome to Keys and Conversations, where musicians speak music and the history behind it. I'm your host, Joel Smith, and today I'm honored to welcome a true legend, an architect of the funk sound, and one of Trenton, New Jersey's musical treasures, Mr. Raymond Earl of InstantFunk. Brother Ray, welcome.
Right. Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Good to be welcome, as they say.
Indeed. Listen, we're going to get right into it. So let's take it back to the beginning. What kind of music was playing in your house growing up in Trenton?
In the beginning, it was gospel music that was played in my house, all throughout the house. But in my earlier years, I started listening to almost everything I could get my hands on. So there was no way I could learn enough. It was like a sponge. If it had anything to do with chord progressions or bass lines or horn lines, I absorbed everything I can get my ear on, with no problem at all. And of course, one thing led to another. Started out playing guitar. I was a guitar player for many years. The only reason why or how I got into bass is that the band I was playing with couldn't find a bass player. It was hard to find a bass player.
Right.
Why don't you play bass? We can find a guitar player anywhere. Why don't you play bass? So during that time, there was just two pieces in the band, myself and Scotty Miller, the drummer. And we played behind a vocal group called the Imperialistics at that time, before they changed their name to the TNJs.
Wow.
So during that period, being as though we didn't have a bass player and being as though I was playing guitar, I needed a bass player, I just took the next logical step. I took the 4 strings off my bass, off my guitar, replaced them with bass strings, and used the other ones for guitar strings. So now I had the best of both worlds.
Wow. Wow.
And that worked for me for a long time until I was able to figure things out, and I didn't get to the point where I was able to figure things out until I went to Junior 5 and I met a music teacher named Tommy Grice. Tommy Grice cut the light on for me. He was the one to show me exactly how things go and exactly how far I had to go and how much I actually had to learn. But he was patient. He was very patient. But it was a long journey because during that time, for some reason, I have no idea why, he just felt I should have been a violin player. So so he had me playing violin for a while. I did that for a while. Didn't like that. I told him, I said, well, Grice, this ain't quite getting it for me. His next thing was, well, Ray, I got a better idea. Why don't you try this? Gave me a tuba. So for almost 3 months, I walked around with a tuba, carrying it back and forth to school. So that didn't work out for me. No, that didn't work out for me. But Grice was pushing all kinds of buttons.
Okay.
So then I told him, look, I've been playing guitar at home, and this is what I would like to do. Well, bring it in, right? Let me hear what you got. That's how that happened. And then that's when I started getting into music theory and learning how to tune my guitar, because before that, I had no idea how to tune my guitar. I was just going strictly by ear.
Wow.
If it felt right and its position felt right, then I was in. But once I learned how to tune my guitar, that opened up a whole nother realm for me. Now I can relate to keys and key signatures and what cats are doing. It was a lot easier to figure out for me. But that was in the early days.
Okay.
That was a winded answer, wasn't it? That was a real long answer.
You took me in some play. I'm so glad so glad you early on mentioned the legendary Mr. Tommy Grice.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm so glad that you mentioned Mr. Tommy Grice, who we're going to come back to and talk about a little later on. But just suffice to say, and I think this is true in almost every successful musician's career, there is a teacher who impacted their life at some point and really just set them straight and set them on a path.
I agree.
To greatness, right?
I definitely agree.
Let's move on. You mentioned a few things. Talk about who some of your earliest influences were as a bass player, and were there local musicians who inspired you back then?
No, because we were all learning together, and we were all learning from each other at the same time. There was only one bass player that really inspired me that I listened to a lot, and that's James Jamerson.
The legend.
Motown. That's right. That's right. I used to dissect his records, put them jokers on 33, and figure out exactly what he was doing. And for a long time, I used to learn those records note for note, And that was a tremendous help, no doubt about it. He was the man.
Sure.
Yeah.
You said it. So really, the bass came out of your guitar experience, right?
That's right.
And so you said you first picked up the bass in when?
Well, see, it was a long transition. It didn't just happen overnight,
Yeah,
because I was doing the bass and guitar thing for like at least 3 or 4 years before we came across somebody that can play guitar. And then that's when I actually transitioned to bass. So that was, and even that was a learning curve for me, because I wasn't used to the fingering, and I wasn't used to the stretching, playing all those bass scales and stuff like that. So it took a while, but I think that by me playing guitar, that really helped me a lot as far as playing bass. That was a natural step forward for me. So I didn't have many issues. I just had to practice to get my fingering straight. Like anything else, you got to get in shape. And then once I did that, I was on my way. I was good.
Did you fall in love with the bass the way you fall in love with the guitar?
Sure did.
Okay.
Sure did.
Talk about that a little bit. Well, let me ask you this, and it's a little off kilter, but so did you fancy yourself? Did you see yourself as a guitarist who just happened to pick up the bass? Really?
Still to this day.
To this
day.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
wait a minute. So you telling me, and for those who can't see, but hopefully we'll get some pictures. So this wall is lined with awards of you as a bassist and a producer. Any as a guitarist?
Well, some I actually played bass and guitar on.
Really?
Yeah, but mostly bass.
Mostly bass.
Mostly bass.
Yeah. Okay. So, but guitar was and is the first love.
Yep.
See, this how you learn.
All you gotta do is look in the corner.
See, this how you
don't
learn
have to
new
go
stuff.
far. Yeah.
All the time.
No doubt
all
about
the time. Let me ask you this. So, and we're talking in the 70s. So what was the Trenton music scene like back in those days, in the late 60s, early 70s?
Smorgasbord. Everyone played something, and everyone learned from everybody else. And again, during that time, Trenton was a hub. You can go to the Carson Inn and you can catch Wilson Pickett, James Brown. You can go down to the Trent Theater. You can see cats like Kool and the Gang when they first started back in the good old days. You can go to the Capitol Theater down there and catch Sam and Dave. So Trenton was a hub. I mean, Trenton was centrally located between Philadelphia and New York. So people that were going from south to north, they would stop through Trenton on the way to the Apollo. Right. And vice versa. Going from north to south, they would stop through Trenton on the way from the Apollo to someplace in the south. So we were centered right in the middle. So we caught everything. We caught everything. It was a good place to be.
That's amazing. That is truly amazing. So out of that, we're going to talk about probably your most famous project, and that is the legendary band InstantFunk. How did InstantFunk come together as a group? And what was the chemistry like between the bandmates?
Good question. Like I said earlier, when I was playing the guitar bass thing, and we had a drummer, Scotty Miller, which is also the drummer for InstantFunk, and we went a long time without a guitar player. Scotty had a younger brother, Kim Miller, who was just learning to play guitar, during that time. And it seemed like overnight, but I know it wasn't. But one day, Kim was just able to play. He was just able to play. Well, you in the band, so that went without saying. So he was drafted, and one of the lead singers, Elijah Jones, had two brothers that played, David Jones and Deanie Jones, both played keyboards. Drafted, so that was InstantFunk. But again, the band didn't have a name then, but it was the same personnel. So the singer group changed their name from the Imperialistics to the T&Js. So for a long time, it was the T&Js Part 1, and the band was the T&Js Part 2. Same InstantFunk, but without a name, without a destination.
Really?
Yeah. So that went on for a while. We came across this manager by the name of Leroy Ellis, who came up with the name InstantFunk. That was his idea. And he says, well, the reason why I want to call you InstantFunk because y'all can come up with a groove instantly. If I say something, y'all just find a groove. just like instant coffee, instant oatmeal, instant funk.
Is
So,
Leroy, now me being just a couple of days younger than you, I've heard stories. Was this Big 12?
all the stories you
The
heard,
notorious Big
all the
12?
stories you heard, but true.
So in
Everything.
music, and once again, anywhere you go, there are these characters. I think when people have talked about Big 12, the image that has come to my mind has been Don King, a Don King kind of a character.
Hmm.
Always out in front, always, leading, and, maybe not the most scrupulous person, but, involved and making things happen. And just by virtue of the fact that he bestowed that name upon the group, that's kind of that puts him in a class of his own. So big shout out to Leroy
Oh,
Ellis.
no doubt about it.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, for doing that. So the sound of instant funk, tight horns, real gritty grooves, sharp rhythms. How did you all lock in that signature vibe?
By playing every day and by doing the chit and circuit. The band rehearsed like 5-6 hours a day, every day. And when the band wasn't rehearsing, we was always on the road someplace. So we were constantly playing, all the time. And naturally, when you play like that, it happens naturally. That's how the whole thing came about. Because we were always playing, always working, always rehearsing. Hmm.
One of the great dance songs, and I'll tell you a little story. When I got to college in the 80s, and I got my mind made up, was and to this day, it's still a song that when it comes on, it almost changes the temperature in a room.
Okay.
Right? If the party wasn't jumping, I got my mind made up, makes the party take off. And I just remember so many times in college, people like, you from Trenton? You from that town where InstantFunk is from? And
Is that what they used to say?
oh my God, folks,
Okay.
absolutely. And you know how Trenton folks are, we claim, anything that we're proud of. And being a young musician, I was so proud to say, yeah, I'm from that town where those cats are from and stuff. So let me move on. And like I said, I got my mind made up. It became a dance floor anthem. Can you walk us through how that track was made?
Real simple. The drummer, Scotty Miller at the time, came up with the hook. I got this hook, I want y'all to hear. How can I check this out? So all they had was the hook. And the way we would write songs, most of our songs were written while we were on gigs, while we were playing. At the end of a song where we may go through all the chord progressions and all the changes, and then we want to vamp out, we would always find a way to do something different with that particular vamp. And we would always record our shows at the same time. That's where most of the original music comes from, at the end of playing someone else's song. Got My Mind Made Up was conceived from a couple of different ideas. Again, Scotty Miller came in with the original idea for it. There's traces of Donald Byrd's Blackbirds in there. There's a couple of things that it's a jumble of different vibes and different styles, to make that song. But the hook was his. Got to give him credit. He started it. He lit the fire.
Indeed. Rest in peace to the legend Scotty Miller.
That's right.
I remember first time I met Scotty and got the opportunity to play with him. I think I froze because it hit me. It's one of those things that just kind of hit me at a point. And I looked and I was like, "That's Scotty Miller on the drums, the machine, as we called it, the machine." All right, so talk about another tremendous influence on your career and on the career of many people who came through Philadelphia and Trenton, so forth and so on. What was it like working with Bunny Sigler and eventually signing with Soul Soul Records?
Working with Bunny was an eye-opener. He gave us the other side of the coin. We already had playing live and coming up with all kinds of grooves, because that's what we did naturally. But working with Bunny, now there's consistency and there's song structure and there's tempos that don't move. When you go into a change or come out of a change, you have to go back to where you started from. So those tempos don't move. And that pretty much we gained from working with someone like a Bunny Sigler. Yeah.
That's interesting. Instant Funk backed up so many artists. Patti LaBelle, Lou Rawls, Evelyn Champagne King. What were some standout studio or tour memories from those sessions?
Those sessions weren't like what a lot of people think. Those songs were put together like puzzles. And, perfect example. When we did Evelyn Champagne King's album, we had no idea who she was. We had no idea who was singing. All we knew was that the songs were in a certain key, and we knew that it was going to be a female vocalist. Now, one of the guitar players during that time was T. Life, Theodore Life, out of Philly, who discovered Evelyn. And he was always, look, I got a deal for this chick. I want y'all to hear her, man. But here's a song. We're going to cut a CD on it, and we're going to, here's the songs. Let's learn all these songs, then I'll bring her in. So during that time, we were doing like albums for a lot of different artists. And the way we used to cut albums, we used to learn a whole album like we would learn a show. It wasn't song by song. We did 10 songs back to back. So we would do an album in a day. And that's the way it was with Evelyn stuff. We learned all the songs, we rehearsed all the songs, just like it was a show, back to back, and we just ran through them. And that CD was cut. After that album was cut, when she came into the picture, oh, that's the cleaning lady from the studio. I didn't know she sang.
That story.
I had no idea.
Yeah. That story that goes along that says that Evelyn Champagne actually worked. I think she worked along with her family
309
as cleaners in the legendary Philadelphia International Studio.
That's
wow.
Right.
And she was young. She was super young, right? Like
but guess what? She had the same voice she has now. Can you imagine that big voice and that small body?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's something.
Some things don't change.
Really something. During that golden era of soul, funk, and disco, what do you remember about the way music was being made, say, in Philadelphia and in New Jersey?
Let's start with Philly, because that's what I'm most familiar with. The thing about Philadelphia that stood out, they had about 3 or 4 bass players that they would select from, 4 or 5 guitar players, 3 drummers. So they always had a multitude of people that they could select to do these sessions. And everybody had chops. Everybody could play. So now you got to ask yourself, and I used to ask myself, well, how do these guys decide who they want to use? Because they can pick anybody that can play rings and all their stuff. So how do they decide who's going to play on what track? Ask Ken Gamble that. And you never guess how they pick the players.
No.
Through personality.
Who gets along with who?
No, it's not that. Your personality reflects how you play. If you have a guy that constantly wants to be out front, then he's going to be busy all over the place. It's going to be all about him. But if you have a guy that's willing to lay back and be a team player and exactly just lay in the background, then he's going to play all the root notes and leave space in between for other people. So it depends on the type of song they were doing, and they would pick the personality. Because I used to wonder, a lot of these songs I didn't get picked for. I used to wonder why. Now I get it. Some places I wasn't busy enough. So they picked somebody else. And then some places I was the right fit for the right job, and I got the gig. But when you got a situation where every musician's at the top of their game, then it's not about how good you play no more. Now it's about how you think, how do you play your instrument, and where do you see yourself fitting when you're playing with other musicians. Some people fit in, some people don't.
That's such a tremendous comment on preparation and professionalism, because you think about, I'm imagining, how old were you? You're a young man at that time, right? Teenager, young 20s, right?
That's right.
So here you are, this, up and coming musician, and you're kind of getting your hat handed to you every now and then, right? You're kind of getting humbled a little bit.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah.
So obviously it inspires you to go on, but talk about, did you get mad? Did it force you to practice? Or were you like, oh, okay, I belong here, I'm in the mix? Talk a little bit more about that.
No, I was like in school. And my thing was, I was never afraid to ask somebody, how do you do that? How'd you play that? Show me this one. So I never had that issue, thank goodness. So I was like a sponge. I learned everything I could from anybody that was willing to show me. And I was around cats that knew much more than I did.
Okay.
You know, so I was, I mean, that's the same thing with here engineering. I was fortunate enough to be around the cats like Kenny Present and Kenny Gamble and Joe Mark and Arthur Swope, all those Philadelphia pioneers. So believe it or not, during that time, you couldn't buy a reverb program. You couldn't buy no kind of phase shifter. You had to make it. All those sounds they made, right there in the studio.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to witness that, and I was fortunate enough to witness them, exactly how they record their sessions and how they mic drums and do all that kind of good stuff. And it actually sank in, but I didn't know I was learning. Because after that era was over, I was surprised to see that a lot of those techniques, I retained, and now I'm here. So that's what you call being in the right place at the right time and having a humble mindset.
Do you find yourself still using certain techniques that you learned back then today?
Yep. That's right.
Wow. Longevity.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right. So let's move on down the road a little bit. So funk went through a lot. The disco backlash, the rise of hip hop, digital production. How did you ride those waves musically and personally?
Again, another lesson I learned. I was speaking to Mr. Leon Huff back in the day when Philadelphia International was on fire, and I asked him a simple question. I said, "How do you guys keep up with the times? How do you keep up with what's going on right about now? How do you stay relevant? How do you know what's going to happen before it happens?" And he gave me a real simple answer. He said, "Ray, we don't compete. We don't play the game. We do what feels right to us." And he said, "Remember, there's certain things that'll never go out of style. Live drummer, live bass player, and a live keyboard player. Everything else will come and go. But those three things, if you keep them at the base of your music, you'll always be where you're supposed to be." So he didn't compete. They didn't compete at all. They just did what felt right to them. And then they let their audience find them instead of them trying to find the audience. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I have a Leon Huff story that doesn't turn out as well as that one.
Uh-oh.
And just very quickly, Mr. Huff and Mr. Gamble, they used to have a club in Atlantic City in the Tropicana Casino.
Yeah, that's right.
Called the Sound of Philadelphia, and it was a commemorative club,
Mm-hmm.
So I was fortunate enough to play there for a good period.
Gotcha.
And one night, it happened so that Mr. Huff and Mr. Gamble were in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And my singer, whose name I won't say, beautiful lady, super talent, one of Philadelphia International's artists, she had a habit of forgetting words, right? Or rearranging lyrics. So this particular night, we were doing, I'll never forget, we were doing Love Train.
Okay.
And she just was butchering the words. So during the break, we were leaving the stage, and as I walked out, Mr. Huff tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "Young man, aren't you a piano player?" I said, "Yes, sir."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "If you're going to play the song, know the song." And I'll never forget that in my life, because I immediately felt like, that's small.
Mm-hmm.
But it left a message with me, and it kind of ties back into what you're saying about not competing.
Mm-hmm.
To be so professional at all times to where you have established your own legacy, your own brand, your own identity. Mm-hmm. That's beyond comparison. And a big salute to Philadelphia International Records, one of the great record companies and music that we still listen to today, and we'll be listening to, way down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Way down the road. All right. So your bass playing has always had feel, movement, and pocket. How has your approach to playing changed over the years?
Hasn't. It hasn't. Not at all. The one thing about my playing that I actually got from Bunny Sigler, I learned the importance of having a producer on set. Because when you're playing, when you're in the zone, you don't think about the next note. because you know your instrument, you know where you are. So it's about what you feel at that particular time. Sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. But if you got an experienced producer on the other side of the glass, he can tell you, well, wait, that didn't work. Let's go back and do something else. You know, so a lot of times when you're playing it in the zone, you don't hear it until the playback. You know, because you're like, you know, you're pretty much emotionally involved. And that's what you go by, how you feel at that particular moment, you know, at that particular phrase or measure in the song. So when it comes around again, you'll probably play something else because you won't feel that exactly same, you know, that same vibe. You'll probably feel something a little bit different, you know. So no, my technique hasn't changed at all. Not at all.
Salute.
Yeah, you gotta feel it.
No, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There you go.
Right? So a lot of younger players are discovering instant funk through sampling and vinyl. What's it like seeing your work live on in new generations?
Oh man, that's flattering, man. That's an honor, you know, especially when a lot of the kids aren't able to create that, but they like that sound enough to know that they want to use it in the process of what they're doing. That's an honor, you know, and no doubt about it. I don't care how you look at that.
Can you name anybody that pops in your mind, like of a particular note, who sampled your music and you just, you know, you have a real special place for that?
Not necessarily. I mean, De La Soul sampled our music. LL Cool J sampled our music. Tupac sampled our music. You know, so we've been through the ringer.
That's a big list right there.
We've been through the ringer.
Right there. If you were to describe the essence of funk to someone who's never heard it, what would you say?
Easy. It's a feeling. It's emotional. It's a feeling. Now, being though it's a feeling, everybody don't get it. You know, every band don't get it. You know, there are musicians that don't get it. You know, if you didn't come up in that era, then all you're doing is emulating what you hear. You know what I mean? But you're not going to be able to feel it like a group like Fallen and Funkadelic. You know. I mean, there are certain cats that's just what it was about. Period. You know, and no getting around it. It is what it is. Don't fake the funk, as they say.
Don't, indeed.
That's right.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Moving right along. So what are you working on these days? Any current projects, collaborations, or performances that you want to talk about?
I'm working on a couple of performances, but the main thing, my main pet peeve right about now is the industry, which I'm totally dissatisfied with. I'm not quite sure who to point the finger at, but right now I'm pointing the finger at corporate America. Because they're the ones that come up with these ridiculous figures. I have to jump on Spotify. I mean, who comes up with a figure of 3% of a penny to pay someone? Sounds like corporate America, you know. And 99 cents for a so-called download. Now, back in the day when we signed with South Soul Records, we were getting $3 a single. So how did $3 a single go from that to 3% of a penny?
It borders on insanity.
Yeah.
And racketeering and a lot of other words that we can't mention in pleasant company.
So the trick is, how does an upcoming artist get paid? You know, a lot of them claim, well, I have to go to social media and I can't survive without social media, but social media puts you in that 3% of a penny bracket. You know, a lot of them are doing podcasts now and working a lot harder than they have to. But again, the question is, what happens to the rest of the money?
Where does it go?
Where does it go? That's right. Nobody's asking the $64,000 question. Where does it go? It's rightfully yours.
Yeah. That's a discussion that we can have for hours on end. And I'd love to get some other people to weigh in on that, because we see it. Like it's almost as if it's become the model now. You know, like you gotta, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta scrape and scratch the pennies.
Yep. And they tell you that your music is worthless, but yet at the same time, when you do a track, you still have to hire producers, musicians.
Exactly.
You have to have somebody to mix it and master it, and the quality got to be second to none, or else they won't put it on their platform. So you pay all that money to get your project done, and at the end of the day, it's for 3% of a penny. That's a problem.
That's a big problem.
That's a problem that needs to be solved. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. Do you still get that same good old feeling when you pick up your bass now as you did back in the day?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me going. Or else I'd be at McDonald's. When I supersize that, that's what keeps me going. If it wasn't for that, yeah, I'd be like everybody else, trying to survive. I have no idea how I'm still here, but I'm still here. And it's for the love of the music, the love of the instrument. No doubt about it.
Okay. Now, with that being said, you are clearly part of Trenton's musical DNA. How does your hometown influence your work today?
Not much at all. And that's because of the internet. Keep in mind, when you're at your computer, you can reach almost anybody on the planet. And there's no music that you can't, reach out to. So right now, it's more worldly than it is a particular city or town or borough, But again, that's what the internet does. So it opens your mind to a lot of things. So the internet is a curse and a blessing at the same time. You can link up with all kinds of people. You can hear all kinds of music. But at the same time, how do you get paid for your music?
Back to that same old question.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody have to eat.
Indeed.
You have to eat.
Indeed. What advice do you have for young musicians trying to find their voice in today's music world?
It's a lot harder for young cats now than it was for us. Because when we came up, it wasn't required that we know the business. Because it was very simple. The contracts were simple. You know that for each single, you would get X amount of dollars. You know that with your song stayed on the radio, you would get a royalty check from BMI or ASCAP. And you know what that was worth. So I advise young cats today, do both. You have to, like they always say, we're always in the show, but never in the business. You have to be in the business now in order to survive. It's mandatory. Because I don't care how good you play or how long you've been playing, if you don't learn the business aspect, you'll be without no money. But your music will be killing, but you won't have a dime to show for it. So you have to learn the business. That's mandatory. It wasn't mandatory when we were coming up because the rules weren't as big as they are now. The rules weren't as thick as they are now. But right about now, it is definitely mandatory. No doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
My advice. Yep.
Raymond, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with us here on Keys and Conversation. You've
problem.
laid down so much more than just bass line. You laid down legacy. Do you have any last message you want to send out to the fans, musicians, or City of Trenton?
The message I would have would be to up-and-coming musicians. Like I said earlier, you have to be in the business. You can no longer just be in the show. There's no way that can happen now. Back in the day, it was fine. But nowadays, you have to be on both sides of the fence. Mandatory. You have to. Yep.
Listen, again, sir, thank you. This has been Keys and Conversations. I'm Joel Smith.
Raymond Earl.
Legend, Mr. Raymond Earl of InstantFunk. Here we invite you to stay tuned for so much more that we have. Just stay tuned and enjoy.
There you go. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.